Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. This meeting is going to be recorded, so if you need to drop off, I will after the workshop either tonight or sometime tomorrow, I'll send out the recording to everyone. So hi, I'm Bonnie Rockman. I am a parent at Roosevelt, and I also am a college essay coach. So I am going to share my screen just to let you know kind of a little bit about how this evening will work. I have a presentation, I'll walk through it, and then we'll wrap up with Q&A. It shouldn't take, everything all together shouldn't take more than an hour. So we will get started. Okay, so crafting a college essay. Um, so this is I want to just acknowledge that this can be a really stressful time. I have three kids, one a junior in college, a daughter who just finished her first year of college, and a high school junior. And so I've been through this as a parent, and also, I started doing this as a professional before my kids were in college. So I've come at it from both angles. And I just want to acknowledge that can be a really stressful time, but I'm here to try and take some of that stress away by explaining that there's not any one right way there's not one topic you need to write about or only one way to write an essay. So I'll just kind of walk you through how the process works. So first thing, I guess I could have started with this slide. So first things, just relax. Like I said, there's not like one topic that college admissions reps want to hear you talk about. There's not only one way to approach this. You don't have to have, I think the kind of stereotype is cured cancer or had, terribly traumatic event occur to you or overcome some incredible challenge. You can really write about the most mundane topics as long as you're really writing about yourself. And I'll get into if that sounds completely just out there and you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll get into that as we go along. Okay, so elements of a successful essay. So really what you want to do here is you want to explore how something has influenced you, the student, as the writer. And if you think back to in Seattle public schools, a lot of elementary schools used to do something called writer's workshop like in second or third grade. And it would be like you would focus on what they called a small moment. So instead of you coming back after summer vacation and your teacher saying, "Okay, everyone, take out that lined paper with the little dashes and write about your summer," your teacher might say, think about one moment in your summer and write about that. So you might write about going to visit your grandparents and them taking you to your favorite ice cream shop and getting you the double-decker cone, which your parents never let you get, and then you dropping your ice cream on the ground. And you just write about that one little moment. So it's kind of the same thing. That's kind of what you want to be doing with your college essay. You don't want to go big and broad. You want to really focus in on just one moment or a person or event, something that like influenced you and changed the way that you think or the way that you see the world or gave you some sort of insight into yourself. And when I say insight, it doesn't need to be this incredibly profound insight, but just something that made you're just trying to show that you, as a 17-year-old, have some sense of uh, personal insight into yourself, that you are self-reflective, because they're looking for, of course, students who think deeply about themselves, about other people, and about the world. So a successful essay really shows change. So you'll start here at point A, and then by the time you reach the end of your essay, you are showing that you have kind of like evolved your outlook on things in some sort of way. And then that change is your theme. And again, I'll get into kind of what that means as we go along. So when you think, there are so many things that you might write about. So when you think about how you're going to do this, one way that you can start is by just taking out a piece of paper and brainstorming, kind of free associating. Think about experiences that really stick out in your mind, about people who've influenced you in a good way or a bad way, places you've gone that that have really stuck with you, and especially character traits that you want to convey. And then that kind of gives you a good branching off place from which to then start thinking more specifically about something you want to write about. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Common Application, which called, a lot of people call it the Common App. And but there are probably people on here who haven't heard about it, especially if this is your first go around with your oldest child. So I'm just going to kind of run you through what that is a little bit. So the Common App is it's a general portal. So unlike parents, when we applied to college and you had to write paper applications and send it off separately to every school, the Common App is an electronic application. It's a portal system that allows you to fill out one application and write one core essay, and then that goes to all the schools that are members of the Common App. And there are a ton of schools that are members of the Common App. Most schools are members of the Common App. One notable exception is Georgetown. MIT is also an exception, and UW until 3 years ago was an exception, but they are now a member of the Common App. So the Common App gives you, in addition to inputting all of your demographic information, so you don't have to do that more than once, you just write one main essay, and they give you 7 essay prompts to choose from. So a lot of times people say, oh my God, I have to write 7 essays. And no, you don't. You get 7 choices, but you only write one essay. And the word limit is 650 words. Okay, so here are the prompts for this upcoming 24-25 college essay application period. So we'll just run through them pretty quickly. So some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that's so meaningful that they feel like they just really can't write. They can't not write about it. And so if this is you, please share your story. So if this is you, you're going to know this is you because maybe you've been playing the violin since you were 3 years old, and it's just so important to you. Or maybe you have some, an identity that is just really so central to who you are that you feel like that is something that you want to write about. The second one is obstacles that you encounter, and they can be, they say obstacles can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, a setback, or a failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Now, the temptation with this prompt can be to do something pretty predictable, like you had an ACL injury and you had to miss the season, and then you had to work really hard to come back, which is a valid and really hard thing to have gone through. But the problem with writing about that for your essay is that you're not the only kid who's experienced that. So not a lot of, but other athletes have also experienced that. You always want to keep in mind that ideally you're writing about something that really only you can write about, and only you can write about it in your voice. So something like an athletic injury, or like something like you tried out for a team and you didn't get on the team, and then you worked really hard over the summer and practiced, and then you tried out again and you made it. Yes, it's absolutely, like, your theme there would be perseverance, but it's not a very unique experience. So you kind of want to steer clear of making that your central essay. So the third one, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? I don't think anyone I've worked with has ever chosen to answer this prompt, but it's there. Also, number four is a not very popular prompt. Reflect on something that someone's done for you that's made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. And that's the key to this one. It's in a surprising way. So you're not just writing about, oh, someone was so nice to me and I was so grateful, but kind of in a surprising way. Um, and how has that affected or motivated you? One student I was working with, she was considering writing about this, and what she was telling me was she was actually on college visits with a parent, and she left her lunch bag in a taxi. She was on the East Coast, and the taxi driver drove it back to her. Like he was already in another state, and he drove it back to her and wouldn't accept money. And she, found that really amazing. I mean, it wasn't even, she told him, it's okay, don't worry about it. And he just insisted he wanted to repatriate that lunch bag with the owner. So she ended up choosing a different topic. But so that's kind of like, that's just an example of how that might play out, because that is kind of surprising. You wouldn't really think someone would drive over an hour to give you back your lunch. Okay, 5, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. This is probably the prompt that most students, I would say the biggest percentage of students write about. It is so broad that so many things fit into it. So when you think about what does a period of personal growth mean, it can really mean anything. And it's, an accomplishment, an event, more likely a realization, just something that you're experiencing, that you're seeing, that's sort of changing. We talked earlier in the session about change, and how you start off thinking this thing, and then you're exposed to different perspectives, and maybe you shift your thinking. So this is a really good prompt to write about something like that. 6 is describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? And where do you go when you want to learn more? So that's if someone has a, you've been like, I mean, it doesn't have to be something serious. It could be like, I am just absolutely obsessed with Star Trek. Or it could be like, I I love gardening. It could be anything. So you don't need to,
All right, let's go. Come
you do,
on.
you don't need to feel like it needs to be like, oh, I need to write about my interest in aeronautical engineering. I mean, you can if that's your passion and you're really, you're just crazy about that. But it can also be something something much simpler and just kind of basic everyday life. And then the last one is share an essay on any topic of your choice. So that kind of brings us back to the slide where I said, relax. There's not one specific topic that you need to write about. You really can write about anything. And this is the Common App's acknowledgement. There's not just one thing that they want to hear about. If there's something that you feel like you want to write about that doesn't actually neatly fit into any of these categories, it's totally fine and you can do that. Okay. Um, 4 years ago, I guess, the Common App introduced this special optional essay, 250 words to write about how COVID-19 impacted you. And they have kept it. I keep thinking they're going to do away with it. And it's kind of interesting because this, your students and the kids on this call, you're the first class that is entering having had a complete high school experience. But they keep it because, well, I can't tell you exactly why, but obviously COVID is still impacting our world. So one thing to note about this is you would not answer this prompt if you're going to write something like, I realized I really don't like learning online. That's really not how I learn best. And it was really hard for me because, again, that is such a universal experience. And so many people really disliked that year or month of learning online. So, um, if you have something um, particularly interesting or unique to say, then you should say that here. If not, you can absolutely feel free to skip it. One thing to just keep in mind that you might want to write about here is if during COVID you started exploring a new hobby or a new interest and say that has become really important to you, or perhaps has even led you to, think you want to pursue something a major in college or a career, that would be that's a good way to sort of flip this essay and talk about, how the limitations of COVID opened you up to thinking about your future in a new way. Okay, University of Washington, I include here because a lot of students apply there. So one important thing to keep in mind about UW is although they are a Common App school, they have a different prompt. They're the only school I'm aware of that does this. And what they have done is so they used to be part of, there's something called the Coalition application, which is a competitor to the Common App. And UW used to be a coalition school before it became a Common App school a few years ago. And UW obviously liked their coalition prompt so much that they have carried it over. So that's what you see here under personal statement. Tell a story from your life describing an experience that either demonstrates your character or helped to shape it. So you need to make sure that you're answering this. And then you'll see that I wrote under here that this prompt most closely intersects with Common App prompts 2, 3, 4, and 5 for students, most of whom want to write as few essays as possible. But this is a really this is not, you have to tell a story from your life. So you have to make sure, I advise students to start with a story anyway, but not everyone always does. They want to hear about an experience that either demonstrates your character or helped shape your character. So they're very specific. You don't have a choice of prompts here. This is your prompt if you're applying to the University of Washington. They also have a supplemental essay, this short response 300-word essay. And I would say schools are kind of split 50-50 in terms of whether they have supplemental prompts. A lot of them have prompts that might be like, a very common prompt is, uh, tell us why you want to apply to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Like, what is it about this school? Why do you want to go here? So that's a really common prompt. Tell us why you want to go to Villanova. So that's a really common supplemental prompt. Or sometimes schools don't have any supplemental prompt at all, and all you need to do is write your Common App essay and you're done. So anyway, UW has a community, like a diversity essay, but they define diversity really, really broadly. So it's, families and communities define us. And then they talk about how community could be your cultural group, your religious group, even your neighborhood or club at school, where you work. And so they ask you to describe that world that you come from and then how you would add to the diversity of the UW. And then they have an additional optional essay about yourself or your circumstances. Um, I always say that if something is optional, because sometimes schools will say, oh, it's optional. You don't have to write an essay, but you can. And in that case, I always advise my own kids and the students I work with, like optional means essential. You have to do it. But in this case, you don't have to do it. In the case of the COVID essay, you don't have to do it if you're only going to write the same thing that a whole bunch of other students would be writing. And so the additional info in this situation is really geared at, did you have a special circumstance? For example, maybe there was an illness in the family and that kept you from applying yourself. Like maybe a parent lost a job and you couldn't really engage in extracurriculars because you had to you had to come home straight from school and babysit your younger sibling. So something like that. Maybe you got like you were diagnosed with a learning disability, and that is helps explain why your grades weren't what you wish they were in ninth grade, and then you were diagnosed, and you were aware of that learning disability and were able to address it, and um get medication or get coaching or whatever, and pull your grades up. So if you have something that you need to say, that this is the space to say it. If you don't have anything, you don't need to worry about that. I also talk about the University of California because a lot of students apply to UC schools. So at the UC system is so huge that they have their own complete application. They do not participate in the Common App. I gave you some examples, Georgetown, MIT, but also UC is its own. It's large enough that it can support its own system. So they call them personal insight questions, and they give you 8 of them, and you choose 4 of them to answer. So it's actually kind of it depends, like, if you like writing long or you like writing short, but it's more labor intensive than the Common App because you have 4 essays. They're shorter, so they're 350 words max, but still you need to have well-developed ideas, and they need to be distinct. You don't obviously want to be writing about the same topic in and overlap that in two, say 2 of the 4 essays. So that is the link, and then I have all the prompts here on this page. So one is about if you have leadership experience, you can talk about that. If you have a creative side, and they define creativity really broadly, so it doesn't just have to be like, oh, you're an amazing artist. It could be like creative problem solving, or you feel like you're an innovative thinker. Um, they ask, what's your greatest talent or skill? And again, there you can define it really, you can kind of turn that a little bit on its head. You don't need to be like, oh, I can do the Fibonacci sequence out, until the cows come home. You could be like, I'm like a really great listener, or I can whistle any song there is, and talk about that and why that's important, like what you think that says about you. Um, then number 4 is significant educational opportunity, or overcoming an educational barrier. So that's kind of takes 2 populations right there. It could be if you face an educational barrier, whether that's financial, again, if there's like a learning disability, or you had an opportunity to participate, I don't know, in DECA, or a conference, or something just kind of that just is above and beyond your regular school day, and how that what you learned from that, how that impacted you. Um, Number 5 is a significant challenge and how you have overcome that. 6 is an academic subject that inspires you, and how you. So the key here is you don't want to just talk about, oh, I really love math. You need, if you're going to answer this prompt, you need to be able to say that you do things outside of the classroom, like, oh, you've started a math tutoring business on the side, or you are just like read math textbooks for fun, or take classes at a community college because the classes at your high school haven't been enough to satisfy you. So you just want to talk about, in some way, you've gone above and beyond what is just offered in your classroom. What have you done to make your school or your community a better place? So that's a great opportunity if you are involved in a club or in a volunteer. You volunteer in some capacity, and either in your school, outside of your school, you can write about that there. And then 8, again, is kind of like a catch-all. If there's something that you want to write about that you feel makes you you, and it doesn't fall into any of these categories, and you feel like this is something that the University of California should know about, you can write about that. In number 8. Okay, this is just kind of interesting. What do people choose to write about? So this just shows most people wrote about their background, their identity, their interest, a special interest or a talent they have. Um, 22% write about an accomplishment. Then underneath, people writing about like lessons learned or failures, problem solved, and then only 4% writing about an idea or belief that was challenged. It's important to realize that it doesn't matter at all what you write about. So it's not like, oh gosh, no one writes about an idea or belief that was challenged. Like, oh, I shouldn't write about that, or oh, I should write about that because not that many people are writing about it. It doesn't matter what prompt you answer. They don't have a preference for one prompt or another. Um, and then this is a great example. This is probably a good 5 or 6 years ago. Um, this Brittany, pictured here, she wrote about Costco, and it was just picked up by all these media outlets because she wrote an essay about, our hometown grocery store essentially. And she got acceptance letters from 5 Ivy League schools and Stanford. And when you read her essay, it was just super creative. I mean, who would ever think about writing about Costco? That's why I'm saying, like, you can write about anything. You wouldn't normally think about writing a Costco, trips to Costco would make for a good college essay. But she wrote about how her curiosity and her love of exploration kind of took root there, because she would see like vanilla from Madagascar and like then be interested in learning about Madagascar, all the different products. She would kind of relate that to it, piquing her interest in learning more about various countries or ideas based on the products that she found as a kid when she tagged along to Costco. This is something that I just actually added this year because ChatGPT, it feels like it's been around for a long time, but it really hasn't. So I didn't add it when I gave this presentation last year, but I am adding it now. So can I just use ChatGPT? The answer is no. First of all, you have to sign a statement of integrity saying that this is your work. So right there, if you submit something from Chat GPT, you're kind of starting your college journey off not without a whole lot of integrity. But equally importantly, what you often get with AI is you get these very generic, very well written essays that sound, though, like it could be written by your friends, by the person you work with, by anyone. And so your job is to write a grammatically correct essay and a well written essay that tells a story about you, and therefore sounds like it could only have been written by you, because it talks about not things like doesn't. It talks about things that are important to you that ChatGPT is not able to kind of get into that depth, in a personal sense. So they're also ChatGPT is also not trained to create narrative structures, and that's something that you really want to do with your essay. And then I include this this screenshot here. So the URL here is a New York Times story from last year, where the writer Natasha Singer asked Chat GPT. They put in some short response essay prompts from Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. This is a Princeton prompt saying, asking you, I think the prompt is, talk about a song that's like, what is the soundtrack of your life now? And so she said, tell me about a pop song that could represent curiosity as a soundtrack to someone's life. And then Chat GPT comes back with um, Cake by the Ocean, which, and you see it's just very generic, the answer. But if you ask any high schooler, they all know that Cake by the Ocean is a song about sex. And so that is just not a good idea to be writing about in your college essay. So you want to just be really careful. It can, it can definitely lead you astray. Okay, so anything goes with the topics. You want to really be authentic, and define experience broadly. So it could be like a meeting with an influential person, a news story that you read that spurred you to action. It could be something very personal, like a family event, or like a personal weakness or challenge, or something that might be insignificant to someone else that has personal meaning to you. So I don't think the students on here have any idea who Donny Osmond is, but he was a celebrity musician back in the 70s, right? 70s, 80s. And a student that I work with wrote, she wrote about auditioning for kind of like a America's Got Talent sort of show where he was a judge, and she was obsessed with him because her parents always listened to him when she was growing up. And she wrote about that process and getting rejected and what she learned from that experience. And it was all sort of built around Donny Osmond. Okay. So once you have decided what you're going to write about, here is kind of how you want to go about your next steps. So the first thing you want to do is you want to fine tune your theme. Are you going to write about overcoming adversity, or respect for difference, or hard work, or confronting fears, or mistakes made, or or mistakes avoided, like anything like this? I mean, obviously this is hardly a comprehensive list, but this is you want to basically say, like, what am I trying to convey? What is the thing? What do I want to be talking about? What am I trying to convey about myself? And you have to choose really one thing, maybe tops two. So even though there are lots of interesting things about you, this is not supposed to be a resume. You're supposed to be talking about one thing, like we talked in the beginning about small moments. So you want to be really thinking, like, what is the one thing that you want to convey here? What is the one thing that you feel kind of represents who you are and that you want colleges to know about you? Um, After that, you create an outline, you brainstorm anecdotes or stories, ways to begin your essay, and then ideally create a writing schedule to keep yourself on track. Okay, so this is just kind of like 7 steps: brainstorm topics, identify your themes, choose your top few ideas. You can map out each idea and figure out, because often you might have a few, but then when you actually start mapping it out, you realize, oh, okay, wow, the things like 2 of these, there's actually not that much substance. There's no way that I could write several hundred words about this. There's just not enough there. Um, you then want to brainstorm anecdotal leads, ways to start your essay by showing and not telling. And then you write your opening paragraph, go with your body paragraphs, and write the conclusion. So the way you open it and the way you close it are often the trickiest, especially the last paragraph or two, because that's kind of like, that's the bring it home paragraphs. That's where you really want to say, here's why I'm telling you this story. Here's what this says about me. You have to keep in mind, this whole essay is really, it's really a glorified, it's a written sales pitch for why a college should admit you. So not in a braggy kind of way. You don't want to brag about your accomplishments. That's, pretty tiresome, but you want to show some sort of like insight and, personal reflection. And so that's what you want to ideally, you want to reach that stage toward the end of your essay. And then you revise and revise and revise some more. Okay, we talked about this. If they say an essay is optional, do it anyway, with the few exceptions that I talked about. If what you would write would be what kind of 80% of people would write, you don't need to do that. And if it's if they say, is there anything else that you need to tell us? And there's nothing exceptional or a particular challenge that you faced in your high school years, you don't need to answer that. But sometimes if they are telling you, if they're giving you the option of writing a supplemental essay, and it's like they give you a topic to write about, then you always want to take that opportunity. It's just more, it's another opportunity for a panel of college admissions reps to get to know you better. One thing you want to do additionally is just really avoid kind of cliches and writing kind of like about I talked about the injury, the athletic injury. You don't want to write about things that could sound patronizing or kind of condescending toward other people. So like realizing how blessed you are when you were building houses for poorer people, which of course, like not only is that kind of patronizing, but it also, again, think to yourself, like, is that a surprising insight? Is that something that is unique to you and unusual? Would most people who would go do that, would they have that same reaction? And if so, that's probably not the best topic for you. There's probably something that you could write about that would be more unique to who you are. This is a little bit about me. There's a lot of writing here. um, I mentioned I have three students. Um, one who my oldest graduated from Garfield in 2021. He just wrapped up his third year at Yale. I have a daughter who graduated Roosevelt last year and just finished her first year at WashU in St. Louis. And I have a daughter who's a junior at Roosevelt. Um, and I work with students who apply to a whole range of schools. So whether you want to go to a big school, a small school, a state school, a private school, I just really I love helping students figure out the story that they want to tell about themselves, no matter where they hope to attend college. I'm also an author of a popular science nonfiction book. Um, I work at Fred Hutch Cancer Center as a writer, writing about patients. And then that's my contact information, but you all have that since you reached out in the first place. Um, Here is how I offer services to help with the college essay process. So typically it's set up in a 4-hour block. After doing this for 10 years, I found that 4 hours is about, from start to finish, what most students need to, if they come in with absolutely no idea, and then we work to figure out what are they going to write about, and then I help them through everything that I really laid out here. Now, of course, this is something you don't need. You don't need a coach to help you do this. Obviously, this is something you can totally do on your own, which is why I'm sharing this information. Some students want additional support. And I really love working with students. So if this is something that is of interest to you, you can reach out. I also sometimes students want help with their supplemental essays. There's kind of a trick to writing. You don't want to especially the essays that ask why do you want to go to I think University of Wisconsin has, why do you want to go to University of Wisconsin? You don't want to talk about, I love the Badgers and I want to go to I love sports and the campus is so beautiful. They've heard all that stuff before. So you want to craft it in a way that talks about what it is that you're interested in studying and clubs that you want to join. And you need to really dig into the college website and make sure you don't answer in generic ways. This is my most important tip. Start working on your essay over the summer. So I can't tell you how many students or parents, often it's usually parents, contact me like at the end of October, as if they're just waking up to the news that their student has to start writing a college essay. So I mean, senior year is really fun. Junior year is really tough. And then you want your student, and if you are a student, you want to be able to enjoy senior year, obviously do well in your classes because those grades count, but also just have fun. So rather than starting your essay in September when you're just heading back and starting your senior year, I always advise people to really to get a jump start on that during the summer, and ideally finish it during the summer, because then you're able to have time to focus on supplemental essays. So that is that's it. So you can unmute if you have questions or put them in the chat and or hop off if you want to hop off. And thank you for coming. So ask away if you have any questions. Okay. Oh, someone said thank you. You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Don't be shy. I'll wait another minute or so if anyone is particularly shy and wants to ask something more in private or put something. Oh, quick question on. Oh, okay. Here we go. Thank you, people. Do you recommend writing up to the maximum word limit? No, not necessarily. In fact, UW on their page about their college essays, they say that a great essay sometimes is 300 or 400 words. I personally haven't seen a great essay in 300 or 400 words. It's really hard to write that tight and say something super meaningful. But if they're telling you that, then you have to believe them. So no, you don't have to write. You don't have to write up to the limit at all. Quick question on Common App prompts. Yes. I don't know who this is, but yes, do you want to unmute and ask the question about the Common App prompts? Okay, if you want to unmute, feel free or put it in the chat. When does the Common App come out for the next year? August 1st. So that's when the Common App opens and when you can start filling in all your demographic information. I actually think you can fill in your demographic information before and it'll transfer over, but you can only start adding schools to your Common App as of August 1st. But these prompts that I went over tonight, they have already been released. These are the prompts that are these are the prompts that have been the prompts for the past 3 or 4 years. They only added a new one 3 years ago. So you can go ahead if you wanted to get started today, you could get started and feel 100% confident that these are the Common App prompts. Are the 7 you showed? Yes, they are. They are. And yes, I think I've answered. I would recommend quick question on. Yes, I think I have answered all the questions. If anyone has anything else, feel free. Any advice on motivating your student to get started early? Well, bribes could always work. I just feel like if your student is a reasonable person, I think I think it just makes sense to point out to them that senior year is really busy and really fun. And why would they want to be bogged down with having to do this right at the beginning of senior year when it's really when they have so many other things to be dealing with. So I think that I mean, hopefully that I mean, for a 51-year-old woman to say that should be motivating is obviously not what a 17-year-old might think. But I mean, they're going to have to do it if they're applying to college. There certainly are schools like the California State, not University of California, but Cal State schools don't require essays. But Western Washington used to be optional, but now they require an essay. So for most schools, you do need to write this essay. So it's like, if you're going to have to do it, you might as well get it done over the summer when you have more free time and then be freed up to either be completely done or start working on your supplemental essays, which are released August 1st when the Common App officially opens. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you so much for attending, and I'll send out the recording in case you want to listen again, or your student couldn't come, or your parent couldn't come, and you want them to hear this. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Bonnie. That
Yeah.
was awesome.
Glad it was helpful. Bye, Allison.
Yeah, so clear. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. I know it can be super confusing.